All right, welcome in. It is time for full court press. I can't talk. I don't remember what day it is, Rob. I thought it was Thursday up until about 2 minutes ago, and realized it's only Wednesday. But off air, as people file in, I'll throw this out to the chat. I'm curious to see what you guys think. 2 minutes and 32 seconds down 11 last night, and I would say. So the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky holds 22,000 people. It is the biggest Division I venue in the country behind Syracuse for fan capacity. There were some seats in the upper deck last night, but that's that's understandable with kids, in school not in session. Still probably over 20,000 there. It was pretty much sold out, pretty much full, not sold out, but pretty much full. I asked Rob off air, and I'll let him answer on the show because I realized it was 10 a.m. Down 11, 2 minutes and 32 seconds left at home, one of your biggest games of the season, and like 7,000 Louisville fans took off. I mean, it was like a mass exodus to the gates. I thought that was crazy. 2 minutes and 32 seconds left. I get it. If there's like 40 seconds left, I get it. Or if you're down 20, you're down 11. That's not insurmountable, Rob. Am I like crazy to be like, feel like if I'm Pat Kelsey, I'm annoyed. Where's everyone going? It's an 11-point game.
Yeah, and you probably have a couple of timeouts in your pocket to boot, 232 plus timeouts. And, you don't see it every day, Adam, and I'm not trying to say Louisville could have done this, but I saw Texas A&M last night go on an 11-0 run in 28 seconds, and it was crazy. So you could probably get yourself a 6-0 run and get right back in the game, or a 7-0 run where threes are concerned. You can do that quickly. A couple of missed free throws on the other end and you score. So, yeah, it is kind of nuts to take off that early. Louisville's a pretty devoted fan base, too. So it seems kind of strange, but they might have had huge expectations walking in last night, and they lived the high life for a little while, and then when it went sour, they were like, you know what, time to go.
That's kind of what I felt like. I posted the video of that exact moment on X. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, it is on. I even posted the time left, and I kind of couldn't believe that everyone was just taking off at that moment. Rob, you're right. Like first half, second half, two totally different games, but Louisville hit 10 threes in the first half. They hit 10 threes. So you mean to think that, yeah, you get a couple at the end. Suddenly it's a foul game and it's a close game. But we were just kind of bantering a little bit, waiting for people to file in. Appalachian. Is it Apple? See, I told you, Rob, can't get this word. It's Appalachian Bet, says Wyoming put it on UNLV last night. Yes, they did. Garth was all over that one. That was a great call. We talked about that on the show yesterday. I'm going to transition into today's feature. So there's always a method to my madness, Rob. If I stayed in Texas a little bit longer, which I just fly by the seat of my pants. I rarely have an actual plan. If I have some family and friends down there. So had I stayed another day or whatever, then this would have been my target on the way back for like a big game. But it wasn't. So I'll be home in a little bit. But there is still a big game tonight down in Nashville, which is also on the route. So that's, again, I would have had to pass through there eventually. Passing through there tonight, Rob, will be the Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is a big one. Two really good teams, two great offenses. Alabama, Vandy, Memorial Gym tonight. How are you seeing this one?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'd love to know whether or not Duke Miles is making his return for Vanderbilt.
I think he is. I'm pretty sure he's playing. As you speak, I'll try to find that, but I think he is.
Yeah, I read where Byington thought that he could be ready to go for this one, which would be huge for Vanderbilt, which has, played without Duke Miles and Frankie Collins and will continue to play without Frankie Collins for a while. I think he's out for a couple more weeks, but just getting one of those guys back on Duke Miles would be huge. Take some of the burden off point guard Tyler Tanner, who was phenomenal Saturday in their win. Lucky for Vanderbilt, I would say that last couple of games, they haven't really faced extreme competition, so they've been able to get away with it. And so you'd like to have Miles back tonight in this one. But I might be sliding South Carolina a little bit there, and I shouldn't. What Vanderbilt did Saturday, wire to wire, pretty impressive. And again, Tanner was an absolute beast at point guard. This is the heavyweight clash I think everybody's been waiting for in the SEC this early part of the season. Both teams so great offensively. Alabama dealing with a couple of injuries themselves, but I think they'll be pretty whole here tonight. Maybe a loss of a little bit of height, but they should be good. I saw a post-game interview with Aiden Holloway after Alabama's win the other day, and he said that Alabama, and there were like 4 Bama kids around the microphone, and their thought process is, we haven't really gotten to as good as we are yet. I somewhat believe him because they haven't been great defensively at this point in time, but boy, they've been put through the grinder as far as schedule is concerned. They match up really well with Vanderbilt. Vandy hasn't backed down from anything this year. And I think that the common perception of Vandy would be, they're probably a little slow. They're probably this, they're probably that. It's not the case. Vanderbilt is a top-notch basketball team in all facets this year. So this is going to be really good. I think with Miles back, my problem would be, and I've talked about this before, I think when Syracuse got Donnie Freeman back, I had said this, but you do wonder if the cohesion is there right away. It should be. I would think Vanderbilt's a pretty well-run machine at this point in time. This total is in outer space right now, 180, I think I saw this morning. So that's, and it's approachable. Believe it or not, it's approachable with these two teams. My tendency here, Adam, my thought is to try and take the underdog plus the points here, 4.5. I just feel like Alabama has been through so many tests so far this year that this is nowhere near a step up in class. They've seen this type of this caliber of opponent so far this season, and they can score right with Vanderbilt. The question is going to become who plays better on defense, and are Vanderbilt's players just a shade worn out? Mark Byington commented on this, saying he's had to play guys excessive minutes with the absences of Collins and Miles. So again, getting Miles back into the lineup would be huge as far as minutes and rotation is concerned. But I think Alabama is more than capable of enough of staying within 4.5, no matter who's on the floor for Vandy. Tough gym, Memorial Gymnasium. I mean, I don't know if you've been there before, but if you have, you know already. Anybody who's watching on TV knows it's difficult when you're trying to tell your team from 90 feet away what to do offensively or defensively. It's not easy, but I think Nate Oates' squad has a little bit in the tank here. So I'm going to try out. If I were to play, I would try Alabama plus points.
Yeah, no, I have not been there. So that was, it was going to be either or. Louisville or Vandy. Louisville just fit my schedule better on the way home. If you made me pick, like if it worked out, like that would have been the choice. Cause again, it's a very unique venue. You talked about Vandy being great there, being a tough, when they're good, that is a very, very difficult place to go and play. Vanderbilt, I was going to say they're 7-0 at home this season, Rob, but they also haven't lost a single game. They're 14-0. Yeah. So the target very much on their back. I think Miles is massive to the handicap here. I have written down, so again, I'll have to go back and double check my source on that one, but I have written down that Miles will play, and that's important for two reasons. I think that if he's in this game, even with this obnoxiously high number, is probably going over. So I probably watched the most Duke Miles during his season at High Point. I was watching a lot of High Point basketball that year, and he is just. He himself is just a tempo pusher, right? Like he's gonna just him on the floor, even if is gonna make teams faster. And then you talk about Vandy and their offensive efficiency being as good as you're gonna find in the country. They have as efficient of an offense as you will find in college basketball. And who's Vandy's leading scorer? It's Duke Miles with 17.1 points per game, hitting nearly 50% from the field. He is huge for Vandy, and if he is in, I think I will slightly lean to Vandy, though I'm not confident on that at all, because as we know, I think you found a good quote, Rob. I don't think we've seen the best that Alabama can bring just yet either. And so I don't really know I want to lay points against the Tide here in a game like this, but it's kind of one that, the books know what they're doing, right? 179 or something on the total, but I still feel like someone's getting a 90 in this game. And if that happens, right, like I think you got a good chance to go over 180, even though it's you can't afford the 5-minute drought in a game like this. But I don't know if I see that with these two teams, Rob. I think you're going to see a lot of scoring, and if I had to play it, I think I'd take the over here.
And real quick, just to clarify, because Alabama, like I said earlier, is not without their own injury concern. Aiden Sherrill questionable here, but
Yep.
from Nate Oates,
Their best rim defender, right? Their
Yeah,
best rim defender.
absolutely.
Yeah.
6'11" kid. Nate Oates had said that they took him out Saturday for precautionary reasons. It's a knee. He was having tests on Saturday, but he thought on Sunday, but he thought he would be good to go here tonight. I still see questionable. I guess nobody's confirmed one way or the other on these two pretty key. I mean, Miles, obviously key component, Sherrill, key component. So maybe check your injury report, see what we can find during the day. We do this at 10 a.m. Eastern time, 7 o'clock Pacific, and it takes a little bit of time certain days to get the proper injury information, just like last night. And I'll just interject real quick here. The Sky Clark news came for UCLA, Adam, and it came late in the day, and I immediately rushed to my client base and released a play on Wisconsin first half, and sure enough, it was pretty easy cakewalk. So again, check those two injuries. They're important to each side as it stands right now. Adam slight lean towards the Vandy side, me slight lean towards the Alabama side. So we probably haven't helped anybody out whatsoever.
So it makes sense to just take the over and root for points, Rob. I mean,
right.
that's
I agree.
And if Miles in for Vandy out, Sherrill out for Bama, like that, I mean, that has to alter the number toward the over. Yeah. That has to make it like more of an over bet than it would be if Miles were out and Sherrill were in my opinion.
And we would see it differently as handicappers. We would be on that. I don't know that odds makers would shift the number for Sherrill, but obviously with no rim protection, Vandy's path to the rim is pretty easy without him there. So it might not show up in the line, but it would show up for us.
Well, and they score at the rim as good as anyone in the country. They're very efficient offense, and they're going to be able to exploit that. So yeah, that's probably the most interesting sort of part of that game, in my opinion. And I think it makes my lean toward the over even stronger than maybe I anticipated when we started talking about the game. Garth, I see you in the chat. We'll get to your game next, but Rob, sometimes listen, as a mid-major guy, and of course I'm in the Louisville building. I see Terrence Williams' big, huge banner on the wall from those 2008, 2009 teams. And I have flashbacks to Clarence Jackson for Siena missing a corner three that would have put them up 8 on Louisville with 5 minutes to go in the NCAA tournament. Louisville finishes the comeback as the 1 seed to beat Siena, the best team we've ever had at Siena College. But I'm a mid-major guy. That was where I was going with this. And so I feel like we need to do a co-feature today, mid-major feature, which is none other than your Belmont Bruins on the road at Northern Iowa. And the reason I wanted to throw this one in now is because you made a point about Sky Clark last night. And I think like these late scratches that come out of nowhere are the toughest ones on a team, right? So like Belmont is a perfect example this last time. Nick McLean gets scratched. That was not known. That was like a couple hours before game time. And Belmont played one of their worst games of the year, I believe that was the game that they choked late and lost to Southern Illinois, which the fact that they were even in a position to lose to Southern Illinois was not good in the first place. So going into game number 2, like when you look at this game, like it looks like McLean is out again, but for you, is that less of an issue because they've kind of now can prepare for him being out?
Well, and I think, what really was problematic the other day was Sam Orm was, he hadn't played the game before and he was questionable. He did play. McLean didn't. and maybe getting one under your belt. I mean, Southern Illinois, this Missouri Valley Conference, Adam, we talked about it really, really early in the season, how good it would be. And Southern Illinois is a difficult opponent for many reasons. They're kind of unique inside that conference, their style of play. But Belmont didn't shoot it well. And I think when you go back to that box score, I had this written in my notes. They only took 12 threes in that game, which is very, very unlike Belmont. Lundblade didn't have a good game. The guy, Casey Alexander, the head coach, calls the best shooter in America. Obviously, he's been very good this year from distance, but he was only 1 for 4. The team didn't shoot threes. Southern Illinois committed to eliminating the arc from them, and they did a good job. And we'll see if Northern Iowa can do the same thing in this particular matchup. My inclination would be that Belmont just doesn't shoot poorly 2 games in a row. And I think that you'll see more threes launched here in this game. So there's a little bit of me that wants to play Belmont over after playing such a low-scoring game. They're just not a team that plays back-to-back games in the 60s. It's not their style. Casey Alexander, even though tonight on the road is going to try and push pace. Northern Iowa, not a team that really wants to get up and down. So you got, contrast in styles deluxe here. Home team, as I always say, generally gets the benefit of the doubt in my mind. And Northern Iowa locks up on defense. The number is always the great equalizer in these games. And I just think that maybe the under here is a little bit too low. Now, I've commented a little bit this season on Belmont's defense being better this season, and it has. So there's a lot of statistical numbers and a lot of reasoning, logical reasoning to say, well, this is going to be a low scoring game again. Sometimes gut feeling prevails in this business. It's really hard to explain. It's an inexact science. But for me, I think the number's at a point right now where you could probably play it over, because I don't see Belmont being held down to only 12 3-point attempts and going 3 for 12 from distance in this game.
Yeah, I'm torn here. This is one, sometimes I'll come on and be like, man, I really want to bet against both these teams. So it's like a game I can't bet. Here, I really want to bet on both of these teams, right? Like I'd love to come out and bet Belmont in the bounce back spot after an ugly loss. And knowing that some of that may have had to do with a player getting scratched very close to tip off, which is always going to be tougher on teams. The other thing is, like, and I pulled Bayou's comment up, Northern Iowa at home has been awesome. And they're awesome again this year, 8-1 at home, 12-3 overall, but Belmont 5-1 on the road. They've been good on the road. And the thing with Northern Iowa holding teams to under 60, like, yeah, they're very good defensively, but no one has been able to make a shot against them at all this season. Like, is that their defense just being so good, or are they gonna, are they do a little bit of bad luck in that regard, where some of the shots finally go in against them? And what better team to do that, Rob, than a Belmont team that you just basically pointed out is it's unlikely to have 2 poor offensive performances, 2 poor shooting performances. So that is going to be a fantastic game to watch. I actually think Belmont team total is probably, I think I would agree with you. I really tried to find a side in that one, and I found myself making pretty strong cases for both. So I looked to some sort of total, and I think my favorite angle there would be Belmont not playing as poorly as they did last time around.
And real quick, just to tell the folks where the money's gone so far this morning, the number has been pushed up from 135.5 opener for a total up to 136.5. And now you're seeing as high as 137.5. The Belmont team total here, Adam, is 67.5. You're asking this team to get to 68. They go on these streaks where 68 is a fairly easy conquest. Northern Iowa's been good. The schedule hasn't been great as far as high-octane offenses are concerned. But we'll see. I mean, it's a great matchup. I actually thought when you said mid-major game, I thought you were going to go to St. Louis and VCU, but maybe we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. I actually promise we'll get to that one, because I may use that as my parlay leg. But first, we'll go to the A10. So I guess we'll do that. We'll do a little double 2-pack in the A10. But I want to go to Garth first. We appreciate the donation. Garth says not a bad seat at the Yum Center. I know Garth is from that area somewhere. He's our resident Western Kentucky alum, so he's got to be somehow be close to Louisville. I think I drove past Western Kentucky at some point, like their campus. I don't know. It's all a whirlwind, Rob, when you're in the car for a long period of time. But yeah, not a bad seat at the Yum Center. He said ball game or concert. It's a beautiful building. It is a gorgeous building. Built, I think, in 2010. I believe those Louisville teams I referenced, the one that was the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament back in, I think, 2009, of course, broke the hearts of everyone in Loudonville, New York. We thought we were 5 minutes away from a Sweet 16, and Louisville just got it done. Rick Pitino, Terrence Williams. I believe that was the last year they played at Freedom Hall. And I think the Yum Center opened the next year. So only 15 years old. He's right. Beautiful building, not a bad seat in the house. But what Garth wants to talk about right here is some A10 basketball. And it's an interesting game. So I'll let you kick this off because he's specifically asking about the Duquesne team total. And I guess the reason this matchup to me is interesting. I didn't play anything here, but like St. Joe's it was almost at rock bottom like two weeks ago. So Deuce Jones the second was essentially dismissed from the team, and not only was he their leading scorer, he was the guy that they gave NIL money. I'm sure actually you could probably speak to this being like kind of in that area, and I know you kind of follow the St. Joe's program, but like long story short, I believe Donahue kicked him off the team because he was just, I think there was a little bit of a feud with Anthony Finkley, who's like one of the upperclassmen. And then just like, for whatever reason, he's no longer with the team. And St. Joe's Twitter went nuts. Basically, they're like, okay, we're just going to punt on this season before an A10 play even starts. So it's very much a sky is falling moment for the Hawks and for St. Joe's. And so I kind of, you read that and you're like, sometimes it's addition by subtraction. It makes me think of Benny Williams up here in Syracuse when he was kicked off the team like 3 years in a row. And every time, or like in 2 seasons, I think he got booted off the team 3 or 4 different times, Rob. And every time Cuse kicked him off the team, they came out and played better. It was like, because he was like such a locker room like issue and just a distraction that it seemed like every time they kicked him off, they played better. So, that was kind of like the approach I was going to take with St. Joe's, because we're sports bettors. And we know that when headlines come out like that, and when there's a narrative like that, the odds start to plummet. And suddenly St. Joe's, who I didn't think was a bad team this year. I figured, you lose Lang to the NBA, but Steve Donahue's a veteran coach like that. I didn't think he was going to have an issue coming in and coaching the team. And so that's where my head is at here. Can I find a spot to buy St. Joe's? And since that happened, which was the loss to Coastal Carolina, they've come out and lost their first 2 A10 games. But it goes back to the conversation we had a little bit yesterday, where when the A10 is good, and I'm not saying it's great this year, but like it can be a pretty deep league. And it's like sometimes it's tough game after tough game, specifically for St. Joe's at St. Louis. That's an impossible game this year. No one might win that game this year. St. Louis might not lose at home this year. But then, losing at home to Davidson was a little bit disappointing. That was the game that I kind of was like, all right, is that the spot to maybe jump in? So my question to you, is this the spot to jump in with St. Joe's? And what do you think about Garth's team total over on the Duquesne side?
All right. So I'll say, just from my standpoint, I've played the last 2 St. Joe's games and been on the right side of both. I had St. Louis team total over. They scored 102. I came back and played Davidson the other night, -1.5. Saturday night, I think it was. And St. Joe's, 40 minutes in the game, for 30 minutes, they were the side. And they fell apart down the stretch. Davidson made one good run at them. They couldn't respond. Davidson winds up winning by 6, made a few free throws, clutch free throws at the end to create a little bit of margin. So I would, first of all, to Garth's question, absolutely you would play Duquesne's team total over 76.5 tonight. If you just go to the Duquesne side, their tempo this season has been increased dramatically, and they shoot the basketball really, really well. I mean, Duquesne's had some very, very high scoring efforts, consistent high scoring efforts. So against this defense, and you have to take into account when you're playing these team totals, game to game, matchup to matchup, the Davidson style against St. Joe's is a lot easier to defend. Davidson's not going anywhere. They got their shell on their back. They walk it up. They work it around. They take time off the clock. It's a little bit easier to defend a closed floor type of offense. But the open floor offense that Duquesne's going to play, more difficult to find your man, grab your assignment, get back in transition, et cetera, et cetera. The two comp games I'll use real quick. St. Joe's played Fran McCaffrey's Penn team early in the season, gave up 83. We know what Fran likes to do from an offensive standpoint. And then again, I'll reference the St. Louis game where St. Louis is an out-and-out Greyhound style, and they got to 102 on their home floor, but still they got to 102. So for me, Duquesne 76.5, to me, it looks like a game that would reach 80. They would reach 80 here. I would be on that side, Garth, with no hesitation, really. So hopefully that gets to the bottom of the question there, but I would be right with you, riding along with Duquesne team total over 76.5. Side, I don't know, but I see the same things that you're talking about there, Adam. I saw it, especially in the second half. Steve Donahue in that game, real quick, and that was broadcast nationally, I think on CBS Sports Network or one of those channels. And Steve Donahue, down the stretch, was kind of losing his mind with his team when they got pushed by Davidson and couldn't punch back. He's not the type of guy. I don't know. I guess I've seen Donahue emotional before, but he's not really consistently a guy on the sidelines that you're going to say, wow, this guy's a nutcase. But he seemed to, he's trying to work with what he has right now. And there are some issues there.
One of my very good friends played basketball at Boston College for him. And by all accounts, a great guy. And yeah, not a hothead, not someone that's going to lose his cool. I'll tell you what, this, I think, and so love to hear that you cashed with Davidson over the weekend. And I'm glad that you brought up the end of that game, because I did not watch the end of that game intently, but it makes sense that, here's the thing with Deuce Jones, what you lose with him. So part of I think the frustration was he just jacked up shots a lot of times. There's a great clip. There's an awesome clip. He hit a buzzer beater earlier this year to beat Temple. And he took a terrible three at the buzzer to the point where I think it was Finkley, threw his hands up in disgust, in the camera, and he made it to win the game at the buzzer. And I just think that that sort of what you lose with him not there, you lose the ability, you lose that guy that in the final 4 minutes is going to have that with someone draped on him, is going to will his way to the hoop, or is going to get off a tough shot when a team's really clamping down defensively. And a lot of times make it, even though he's, 26% from three and he probably takes some bad ones. He was probably the guy that can make that shot at the end of the game. And you kind of said, down the stretch against Davidson, they just didn't have it. So I don't think I'll play St. Joe's today. Probably another one I'll watch. But Garth, if you play that team total over, I hope it gets there for you. All right, Rob, I'm going to go to that other game. And I'm feeling generous today. I have 2 4% plays locked in right now, and I'm going to give one of them on the show. And I wasn't sure which one, so I don't have the sales brick up yet for the other. But if you'll have the opportunity to help your boy out if you want to buy the other 4%er. If you're like, hey, I only need one, well, then you're going to get one for free. And if you want every pick that Rob and I make for a 3-day period, it is at a major discount, and it's going to be all year. So if you like what you see on this show, if you like the breakdowns, I've always joked, I listen, Rob, I'd rather read than listen to me talk. I've said it many times. So it's you'll get the written analysis, It's the same thorough analysis we do on the show. And the bonus is you don't have to hear me talk. You don't have to like see me looking at 10 different things, seeing the caffeine kick in where it's, we're starting to get to milligram number 300 on this energy drink, getting a little crazy. So if you buy the package, you just get to read it in peace. So that's my roundabout way of saying, go check out the package that Rob and I have, 3 days, all access, every college basketball play that both of us make. I bet St. Louis here plus 2.5, Rob. I understand. Listen, 2 years ago, I went to this exact game in Richmond at the Siegel Center, a tremendous atmosphere, a phenomenal building. Very, very good home court, edge historically for VCU in this building. And that year was not, that St. Louis team was not this St. Louis team. Let's put it that way. That was the year, I think St. Louis, it was before Shirts was there, and they got run out of the gym. This St. Louis team is awesome. Arguably the best team in this conference. Avila is phenomenal. I think it took Shirts, maybe 2 years or, that first year, he was still trying to like adjust to the A10. I think that's the point I'll make here. This is Phil Martelli Jr.'s first go around in the A10. The first time that he's going to have to sort of deal with like tough A10 conference game after tough A10 conference game. VCU had a decent non-conference, but I still just think that this team is maybe a tick down from where they've been the past couple of years. Whereas St. Louis might just be, they may run away with the league. If they play to the potential, they're going to run away with this league, Rob. Avila is the type of guy that can get VCU away from the rim a little bit. And if you can do that, I think you can score on VCU. So I didn't agree with the move up to 2.5. I haven't looked at my odds screen in a minute. So I'm assuming it's still there. But I played St. Louis plus 2.5, Rob, and it is a 4% play for your boy. And now I'm seeing some 3s and 3.5s, which, you know what? I got to say, like, bring it. Okay. Same thing happened to me with Columbia on Monday. They won the game, was no problem. I think that got steamed a little bit like just now. I thought it might've been a head fake. I think that's insane. Unless someone's out for St. Louis, which I don't think is the case. I think you're getting the VCU home bump right there. And it's more than I imagined it would be. So again, doesn't change my handicap at all. We will get a better number on the show for our parlay than I did for clients. That's rare too. But it actually happened on Monday with Columbia, and it didn't matter. Columbia won the game, and I think St. Louis is going to win this game. So St. Louis Billikens for clients plus 2.5 on the show. It looks like we're going to be able to take plus 3 or 3.5. I think they get it done in Richmond tonight. Do you make anything? What do you make of that line move? Any reason why VCU's taking a little bit of money there?
Yeah, I can't make heads or tails of that, Adam, other than just people playing home floor advantage. When you break down personnel here,
Ooh.
And what do you say?
Quickly back to, so I think someone just faked it to 3 or 3.5 because a couple of those books just went back to 2.5. So maybe a little market manipulation, Vino. Maybe Gianni's over here firing stuff out, moving the market.
Yeah. And like we say all the time, I mean, it feels like we say this every day. We do this show probably at a great time, in a great time slot, 10 a.m. East to 11 a.m. East, when these markets are active, very, very active. And we see moves each and every morning here on these games. And that just goes to it. My initial reaction here, obviously, as a guy who looks at totals first, was to play this game over. I don't know that it's priced high enough, Adam, at 170.5, now up to 171, 171.5. It just seems, and granted, St. Louis, nor VCU for that matter, have played terrific schedules lately. So some of the numbers that they've run up, you have to take with a little bit of grain of salt, but this game's going to be played at such a pace. And St. Louis is such a shot-making team. And they've been good to me 2 or 3 times on team total this year. And that's really where I want to go with this one, is over 84.5 on their team total, because I just don't view VCU at this time. VCU comes with perception of past reputation under Shaka Smart. and that press, that full court press, and the steals and the buckets, and the other side can't score points. They're not necessarily, and they weren't then, actually. Now that I think back, I used to always say if you could get VCU into a half court, they're not really a great half court defensive team. This team doesn't defend threes really well. St. Louis shoots threes tremendously. The whole thing about this game really lies with St. Louis, and will they be a little bit shaken in this venue if something starts to go wrong early? If VCU comes out and throws a quick punch to St. Louis, they're not really accustomed to being in these games. Shirts, when he had Indiana State that year, they were really, really good. They were kind of used to that squad going on the road, being the target. I think for what it's worth, they just shoot it too well. They play the same style. A lot of times these teams that play up-tempo, fast-pace, get up on you with press, sometimes those teams don't like to have it done back to them. St. Louis will do it back to VCU here. I think the advantages lie with St. Louis here, other than the home floor. Again, it's a team that when you watch them offensively, a lot never gets made out of, assists and passing the basketball around. But St. Louis is one of those teams that always makes the pass to get the better shot, to use a basketball phrase. Extra pass for a better shot. Make a good shot a great shot. It's what they do. I can see them getting over 84.5 here. I could see this game going over 171.5. We talked earlier about Bama Vandy being an obnoxious number. This in that same category, but that same type of game that you'll see there. This is going to be rapid pace. I think two ways, and I haven't confirmed either yet, but St. Louis team total over 84.5 appeals to me, and full game total over appeals to me as well.
Two comments in the chat. So, Ocho says, St. Louis is not battle tested yet. Yeah, I mean, listen, you could say that about a lot of teams, right? Like getting to conference play, November, December. I think you could say that about a lot of teams. And so, yeah, I understand going on the road isn't easy, but I don't think it's as big of a deal, especially in like these road games. Me personally, I'll give a far bigger bump for road or for a home team in a spot like in late February, early February. Like it's still early January, and I just don't think it matters quite as much. Now, Jacob says, I have to disagree, Trig. I make my number VCU -4, so I took my money line -140 early this morning. Well, you're right about that. I mean, the market clearly moved the way your number suggested it would. I'm at pick here. So when I saw the +2.5, I said, okay, like that, it feels like something that could, get faked up and played back at. That is essentially what happened. So the market has pretty much settled back in at 2.5, with the exception of a couple places still have 3. So that 3.5 was a very brief thing, which tells me that there was people out there that wanted it to get it up to 3.5, so they could kind of get the money on St. Louis. So I'm pretty comfortable with my position here. It is a 4% play, and we will likely just call it 2.5 for the parlay, since it looks like it's going to be, back there at the end of the show.
Adam, let me just real quick here, because you always like to look at both sides of these arguments. It's how we handicap games. You can't just look at one side and say, here's the assets we're going to win. You have to look at the other side. To the comment about St. Louis not being battle tested, VCU has played one real team at home this year. That was New Mexico, and they lost outright, 81-78. So I guess you could, to the point, you could probably say VCU hasn't shown to be battle tested either, because they welcomed one team in that was in their weight class and they couldn't beat them. And I don't know how you would comp St. Louis to New Mexico, because New Mexico is playing great ball right now. But I'd probably put them on an equal playing field. Like if they were on a neutral, I guess you could go to your numbers and tell me what a neutral would be, St. Louis, New Mexico, but it would be pretty tight.
Yeah, St. Louis would abuse New Mexico on a neutral. If you ask me. Like I get that New Mexico is playing better, but I think St. Louis would just drag them out of the gym if those two teams played on a neutral court. Now, if it's at the Pit in Albuquerque, an all-time favorite venue of Trig, that's a whole different story. That place is awesome. The other thing is about battle tested. Phil Martelli Jr. is battle tested from his days at Bryant, playing tough games in Albany and Burlington. Like, he just got there too. This is like, I would almost argue that Shirts in St. Louis are more battle tested than the current VCU regime, which is a new coach from Bryant that played one game in the NCAA tournament. Like, look at how Shirts struggled early on in the A10 with St. Louis last year, even coming in from Indiana State. So I think that second year for Avila and Shirts is so huge. And this game is going to come down to Avila pulling, just being able to run that St. Louis offense efficiently enough to get VCU away from the rim and get some points. So yeah, went a little longer on that game, but hey, I just gave out a 4%er on the show. Would normally sell it for $25. Now you got it for free. All right, Rob, do you have any idea where you want to go with your parlay leg, or do you want to throw a game out here that you wanted to hit on today?
Let me just go ahead and give the parlay leg here. And I guess you could classify me as a homer today. I mean, I show up with this Belmont polo, and for my play, I'm going to go to UConn tonight. 10.5 on the road against Providence. Couple of reasons why this is one of those, for me, situational plays we've talked about a couple of times this season, as I drag from my notes here, a couple of times this season about how down the Big East is. And that Connecticut should be able to take advantage in all instances here. I'm trying to find the quote. Oh, yeah, here we go. But I found one quote from Kim English, and I'll get to the Connecticut side in a minute. I found a quote from Kim English, very, very interesting. After they beat St. John's in their last game, 77-71, right? Here's what Kim English had to say. He said, if we were 10-3, and they're not 10-3, they're 8-6. If we were 10-3, we would still be the same exact team that struggles to play together at times, struggles to defend, struggles to rebound. So the onus is on us, or was on us, locking into what we had to do. Our guys answered the bell against St. John's. Basically, what the coach is telling you, despite that win, we're still not that good. We still don't do a lot of things really well. They did them temporarily against St. John's. Other teams have done good things temporarily against St. John's. But you're going to face tonight a Connecticut team that Dan Hurley once again went off on. And we talk about these coaches that go off on their team. But Dan Hurley's whole thing was ball security. Nobody on this team knows how to take care of the ball. I might just have to start benching guys. It's his way of, getting through to his team. However, they're coming off a really bad shooting performance. I wouldn't expect UConn to shoot badly 2 games in a row. And their defense right now is pretty close to the defense that won the championship a couple of years back. I like to use the phrase they guard like, Fort Knox. And right now, even Terrace Reed commented on how good this defense is. He said, defensively, it feels like we've taken a tremendous jump this year. Our next step is to get that killer mentality to put teams away as soon as we get that lead. Remember a couple of years ago, Adam, that was the case. When UConn, it would be close, and then boom, separation would be created, never close again. I just find these other teams like Providence in the Big East, these middling type teams, to be fodder for UConn on nights when they're interested. And I think that's where I come to my play here on UConn minus. It's been bet up to 10.5. That's the number we're going to have to use. But this team appears to be, from coach to personnel, really motivated to hit the gas pedal here. And if they do against Providence, I don't think this game, we said it the other night, the game wasn't close either. They won by like 19 or 20. And they may just stomp through the Big East in this fashion. But tonight, I think even on the road, and this is not a true hostile road venue. UConn's going to go in there. It's a close bus ride, Stores to Providence, no big deal. So I like UConn. I like them a lot. I think they probably win this game by 15 plus. Number here is 10.5.
Yeah, if my buddy Joey Cheese were in the chat right now, he'd basically call this another home game for UConn. Like he basically is like any venue that's in the Northeast is a UConn home game. Now, obviously, that's not the case at Providence. They have a lot of fans themselves, but yeah, the UConn faithful get out there, and their presence is almost always felt in any game in New England or New York City, and certainly, Providence is a stone's throw, not very far. It's part of the New England area. Before Big East play started, Rob, I came on and was like, kind of joking, like, what would you make the number for UConn to not lose a single conference game? And I actually was like, is it minus 150? Right? Is it like it's crazy to think, but like, would they be a slight favorite to run the table in this conference with how bad this conference is? I may need to update that to, will they lose a game? Will they win a game by single digits? Will they just win every game by double digits? I mean, obviously that's probably not going to happen, but you talked about a bad shooting game. They still won that game by 16 over Marquette. UConn's Big East margin of victory so far, 19-point win over Butler, an 18-point win at DePaul. And that DePaul team might be better than this Providence team. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is like DePaul's actually not half bad. And they beat them by 18. 23-point win at Xavier, a game where I remember thinking, oh, are they going to play with nothing to lose? Like, are they going to be up for this game? How many times do you think that's going to come up this year where it's like, oh, are they going to get up for this game? Like, because someone in the Big East has to be quote unquote good just by default, right? Like they all play each other. Someone is going to win enough games to be in like second or third. And then they're going to go play UConn, and someone's going to be like, oh, this might be the day. And then UConn's going to win by 30. And everyone's just going to be like, oh, yeah, of course, it's UConn. That was Xavier a couple weeks ago. They lost by 23. And then, of course, over the weekend, UConn sleepwalks to a 16-point win. The one thing I kind of am in agreement with is, like, because the Providence fans get up for their home games and it's a good atmosphere for Providence basketball, I think, like, Hurley, as smug as he is not just going to like allow that, right? Like, he's going to go in and probably have his team focused. And if they're focused, they're probably winning that by double digits. So I agree with you. And Rob, you have the option. If you want to go 10 minus 120 in the parlay to not like lose your number, that's cool too.
Oh, all right. We can do that. And I will say real quick, what made me think of you right away in that quote was the piece where Kim English says we're the exact same team that struggles to play together at times. And I know you were the one that brought it to our attention that the young class and the upper class might be like oil and water. And maybe that's what Kim English is referring to here. He's got to have certain rotations because certain guys just don't play together really well.
Yeah, my one of my good friends is a Providence alum, has been like very close to the basketball program since he was a student there, which is late, 2009, 2010, 2011. He's a little younger than me. So he's been tight with the program for like 15 years. And that's where I got that. So it's like probably legit. Now, that was a little while ago, earlier in the season. Like, you think that, they could iron those things out. But then again, Rob, in today's day and age where guys can get in the mindset, like, I can just go somewhere else at the end of the season, they might not, right? It might just be like, F this guy, I'm out of here at the end of the year. If you no one, you used to have to like try to team build and work to get on the same page. Now it's like the second someone's unhappy, one foot's out the door, and it's like, where am I going next? And so it may only get worse. So maybe he's just alluding to, the lack of chemistry, and that's, I feel like I've seen that this year with Providence. I know they kind of surprised St. John's, but nothing about this Providence team is gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling. So there's zero chance I would play them here. It could only be UConn, and I think you're probably on the right side. Okay, let's we got 10 minutes left. Let's get into the chat here. I'm just gonna grab one at random. Try to hit maybe a league. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Okay, a couple people asking about this one. SMU Clemson, Rob. Unfortunately, the timing didn't line up. I was hoping that SMU game was like either way earlier or way later. I would have tried to go on Saturday when I was because I was in the Tarleton's in the Dallas area ish, kind of, like maybe an hour and a half away. That was as good as SMU has played all season. They hit everything. And UNC in a game that I kind of liked UNC in that game. That's where my head was at going into that game was playing UNC just to win the game. I think it was like a pick, and they had no chance against SMU. So I'm glad I passed on that game. SMU now turns around, hits the road to Little John Coliseum. They're a dog. Clemson's just a frustrating team to play against. Ask Syracuse. New Year's Eve was Brad Brownell came in and just put on a clinic. He even with Pat Kelsey in the league, and Shire, like Brad Brownell, constantly underappreciated in the coaching ranks, in my opinion, Rob. And if he has a good game plan here, he's probably going to beat SMU. How are you looking at this one, Clemson, SMU?
Well, let's just start with what might be one of the most underrated guards in the country in Boopie Miller for SMU, right? I mean, because he's there in Dallas, they don't get a ton of exposure TV-wise, but the guard tandem on this team is phenomenal. I want to give you something really quick here from both head coaches, Andy Enfield, and this is where I kind of fell on this game because this is kind of a breaking point for SMU, which appears to have a really solid team this year. But Andy Enfield said, we have some goals we want to accomplish and we want to complete. Our players believe we can compete for the ACC championship. Our players are bought in and they're competing. That showed up against UNC with all that hype that UNC has. It did not matter against SMU. Counter to that, Brad Brownell, really quick. Obviously, we've had a good start. We've got 16 more games. I think our team has improved a lot over the last month because we've practiced more. We've had more time to study film. It's helped us grow. I think athletically, SMU is the better team. Now, they have to start going into these venues like Little John and coming away with victories. And this one could be tough. Like you say, Clemson's not an easy opponent. So to respond to your quote or to your analysis of Brownell will probably devise a good game plan. It's going to be to stop these guards. That they're going to focus solely on stopping these guards and maybe trying to control SMU's pace a little bit, because if SMU gets Clemson in some type of up and down for a short period of time, they can do some damage. I kind of think they can stay close here, Adam. I like what I've seen out of SMU. I've tried to play the negative role, thinking that, okay, this is the time. But they seem to come through at every turn here. So for me, I really love good backcourts in college basketball. I think they dictate everything that goes on. I'd probably lean SMU here, but I tell you, this is probably the game I'm most interested to watch tonight. I really am, because I want to see if SMU can overcome road hurdles in the ACC against quality competition. Because if they can pull this off tonight, they do have a legitimate chance of winning this conference.
Yeah, I think it's going to take another big shooting performance from three for SMU to go in and win. Now, my number was 4, which is pretty much in line with what the market is. What Brownell will do and what this Clemson team will do is pretty much not allow SMU to just like get out, run up and down and get out in transition. Clemson did a great job of, and they always do a good job in defending that, but specifically against Syracuse, who really needed some transition buckets in that game to score. Clemson gave them nothing in transition. Like that, if Donnie Freeman didn't go nuts in the second half, Syracuse would have lost that game by 20. They couldn't get out and run at all. So that's going to be the key for SMU. Can they replicate that shooting performance against North Carolina? Now, can they go on the road and do it? And I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm not going to bet the game, because I do think that it's possible. And if the threes are falling for SMU, then suddenly that 4.5 looks not half bad. But I don't know. And for that reason, I won't have action in that game.
Sometimes you just need to watch. And real quick here, the comp game for Clemson would be the Georgia game. 97-94 overtime. Georgia plays similar style to SMU. 80-80 at the end of regulation. Let's get to Garth.
All right, Garth, thank you for the donation. And yeah, we've actually hit more big conferences than, hey, we go off what you guys want to talk about. The questions, a lot of them have been to the power conferences. So we've got to get some of the little guys in here. And Garth is asking about Citadel, Mercer, as I lose my spot and try to get back to it. Thoughts on Mercer Citadel? He says, I like Mercer. Well, Garth, I've said on this show multiple times, I think Citadel is one of the worst college basketball teams in the country. So there is no way that I'm going to take Citadel in a game against a Mercer team that I've backed a couple of times this year. And I actually have Mercer, Rob, as a somewhat of a dark horse in what is a SoCon that is just not nearly as good, not nearly as deep as it's been in years past. I think this is as down as the SoCon has been in a while. Chattanooga has not panned out. Some of these other teams lost head coaches. It is just Greensboro is nothing like they've been the last couple of years. So it's a down year for the league. I kind of think Mercer might emerge and win this league this year. Just because they haven't contended in a while for a league title. I think Mercer might be that good. In this case, my number was 19.5. So I certainly don't agree with the move down. Yeah, Garth, I'm with you. I've been avoiding laying these huge favorites, but 15.5 Mercer, definitely some value there. I made this number over 19 points. So yeah, I like the Mercer side here. Anything on Citadel Mercer for you, Rob?
I just think the situation sticks out toward Mercer, right? You lose your first two conference games, both on the road against good opponents, right? Furman and ETSU are good teams. ETSU, I think, is undefeated right now in league. They've only played a couple of games, but you come off the road, step down in class, your conference home opener. That type of situation just plays. And especially when you have a team that you can take your frustrations out on. Citadel's one of those teams. We like to call them get right games. Mercer can get right here, win a game by 20, get their confidence back, and go from there. So I think situationally it just screams Mercer. If I was going to play, that's the way I would play.
Yeah, this might be tough to find at any book. I'm sure it exists somewhere. But yeah, Mercer is 0-2 to start conference play, but they probably lost to two of the better teams in the league and both of them on the road. I think this is a great time to bet Mercer to win the SoCon because you'll get as good of a number as you'll ever get for that bet. And the two games they lost were arguably the best two teams they'll play in conference play, both on the road. So you want to talk about a good value bet because those teams this year, the Furmans and the ETSUs they're not running the table. It is going to be the winner of this league probably has 5 or 6, 5 losses in conference play because no one is great. So they're kind of beat up on each other. So that's something that's your guys' homework in the chat. Someone find that and let me know where it is. Who's offering SoCon conference odds right now? That's what we need to know. I'll have to look at it later. All right, Rob, we are at the end of the show. I will promo our stuff very quickly. Again, check out the joint packages. This is the best way to go. Listen, we both have individual plays up, but 3 days, every college basketball pick we make over the course of 3 days, almost always going to be different games than we talk on the show. So if you like the show and you want a written extension of that with the plays that we're actually going to play, those are going to be up every day the rest of the season. We negotiated that with our bosses. It's staying up there. So that 3-day special is just gonna sit on our pages all season, and you can just take advantage of that for any 3-day stretch. Doesn't matter if it's the weekend, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Great for people that have no clue what day it is, Rob, which is me right now. Because I woke up thinking it was Thursday until about 9:59 a.m. Eastern. It's 10:59 a.m. Eastern, which means we gotta go. But before we go, I will recap the parlay. We're going to go with UConn -10, and I've added some. It's going to be -115, -120 juice, depending on your book. And then I think St. Louis right now, it's reasonable to call it plus. St. Louis. We should be able to call that one +3. I keep losing my spot. Yeah, we'll call it +3. It seems like +3 is the most widely available. So UConn -10, St. Louis +3. I factored in the juice, so we'll call it +250. Shop around, obviously, as always. Shop around. St. Louis +2.5 is a 4% client play for me. So you're getting a better number than me on one of my top plays. But hopefully, like Monday with Columbia, it does not matter. Win or lose, we'll be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern for more full court press. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the morning.